Are you ready to finally understand how to crochet a swatch? This beginner-friendly guide is going to walk you through exactly how to make one, why it matters, and how it can actually save you time and frustration in your projects. I'm Salena Baca, founder, host, lead educator with the American Crochet Association, and I'm walking you guys through an oldie but a goodie article that I want to share with you guys today. Now, a lot of crocheters skip making a crochet swatch thinking that it's just going to be a waste of time, it's going to be a waste of yarn, or that it's just not necessary. Other crocheters aren't even sure what a crochet swatch is or why they should bother with it. If any of that sounds familiar, let me know in the comments. I want to see who's here, who's watching, who's following along, whether it's live or on the replay, because you're not alone. Here's the thing, a crochet swatch is more than just a little test square. I mean, it is, but it's a lot more than that. It's going to help you check your stitch and row size, understand your yarn, and make sure that your projects are going to turn out just right. So if you're interested in learning more about this, I'm going to walk you guys through this article, or you guys can just click on the link in the video description so that you guys can read and learn more about this. So first and foremost, what is a crochet swatch? A swatch is just a little small sample of a stitch, fabric, or a pattern. That's it. So think of a crochet swatch like a sneak peek of your finished piece, but without the commitment of actually making the whole thing. I write crochet patterns, and a lot of times people reach out to me whenever they're following my patterns, particularly if it's a garment or a hat or something that's sized, and they want to know what stitch they should use to crochet a swatch. They think that maybe they're only going to work like a single crochet because if they're looking at the yarn label, the gauge is listed there in single crochet in stitches and in rows. However, you're going to crochet a swatch with whatever stitches or stitch is used and listed to create the exact fabric in your crochet pattern. So for example, here we're going to feature this free sun hat crochet pattern that I'm linking here. This particular pattern is made with alternating rounds of double crochet and single crochet stitches. So if you needed to crochet a swatch for this particular project, if you wanted to make this pattern, you would work up a very small sample using those exact pattern stitches, the alternating rows of double crochet and single crochet. And if you wanted to make a gauge swatch for something like this, more on what gauge matters and what it means next, you're also going to use the suggested yarn or something similar, a similar substitute, to make sure that everything looks and feels just right before starting the full project. So you might be wondering what else you can learn or what you can learn in total whenever you crochet a swatch. And there are tons of things. Really, I'm just going to go over the most important elements or ones that make sense to me. So first and foremost, I like to crochet swatches because it is excellent practice. So just like any other skill in life, if you really want to master something, you've got to practice it, right? So in crochet, creating a swatch can help you to practice in advance before you start that project. So a practice swatch in crochet can help you to even out the tension of your stitches and your fabric. It can help you get a feel for the stitch and row repetition of the pattern, and it can actually help you learn or practice new and special techniques before you start learning and trying to apply them in a project. No matter how long you've been crocheting, starting with the absolute basics is always going to be a good idea. So if you're wondering what to practice and how to practice, I'm linking it's called a step-by-step guide for beginners, but really it's a helpful resource for anyone if you just want to practice basic stitches, techniques, and things like that. So click on over to that if you're not sure what to practice and you're not sure where to start and you're just looking for a good first step. So this might be one of my favorite reasons to create a swatch. And it's really just to see how the color of the yarn I'm using looks in a fabric. Because really what I want to know is color going to enhance or hide the fabric or the stitch pattern that I'm creating? Now, color combinations can absolutely make a project. It can really enhance it, make it look fantastic, or it can totally hide and hinder and just break your project, so to speak. So creating a swatch is going to help you to choose the best colors for it. Now, this is all in the eye of the beholder. I'm not telling you what is right or wrong. I'm just telling you that a swatch is going to help you find and determine what you think is going to look best based on lots of different elements, but specifically how color looks in a particular stitch pattern. So seeing how colors look together with a swatch of your project is going to help you decide the order, the placement, and the total number of colors you'll use. So here is just one example, and I've got tons of pictures so you guys can see. I wanted to crochet a blanket quite a few years ago, and I wasn't sure what colors to use in that blanket. Now, this blanket had a very specific 2-row repeat, and I really wanted to showcase that there is a 2-row repeat. I'm putting all this time and effort and work into counting out the stitches and working the stitch pattern, so I want people to be able to see it at a glance. If people are crocheting up this blanket, I want them to really make sure that the yarn color they're using and how they use those colors are going to enhance that stitch pattern. So here what we see is that this stitch pattern is worked in a solid color and a variegated color, a solid color, all variegated, 2 different solid colors together, a light solid and a dark solid. And we can see right here that, I mean, at a glance, these all look like completely different fabrics. Now, everyone's going to see something completely different, but what I saw and what I thought looked best was really highlighting that there is a 2-row repeat with 2 completely different colors. I really liked the variegated and the solid. I like that contrast. But really, ultimately, when I made this blanket, and I made it a few times, I wound up going with 2 solid colors, one being a lighter color and one being a dark color, just to show that depth. But again, whenever you're crocheting up your swatch to test out different colors in a pattern, you may like something entirely different. So each of these crochet swatches above has the same number of stitches, it has the same number of rows, but really just the colors are arranged differently in each one. And again, my goal in this was to see which color combination was best going to highlight the stitch pattern. So if I was making a full blanket with the stitch pattern, which I did, and I linked it right here if you're interested, I want to be sure that the colors I choose are going to enhance the design rather than hide it. So again, just testing out those colors on a very small swatch first just helped me make that decision so much easier. So here's another reason to swatch. Swatch for yarn and fabric. Now, before starting a big, expensive, or very time-consuming project, wouldn't it be great to know if the yarn you're using was actually a good fit? Is this yarn going to be easy to work with? Will it complement the pattern that I'm making? Will it hold up after washing, use, and wear? So a simple crochet swatch is going to answer all of those questions for you. So just by working up a small sample swatch first, you can test out the yarn textures, the feel, the drape, the durability, and it's going to help you make the best choice before committing to a full project. So this image right here shows a lot of things. It showcases 6 different crochet swatches. Each one of these is just 10 double crochet stitches by 10 double crochet rows. Now, while the colors vary between each one of these, the real difference lies in the fabric and the texture. So these swatches are made from different fibers: acrylic, wool, cotton, and even blends of all of those. Each one of those is creating a very unique look and a very unique feel. So by making these crochet swatches, I was able to test out how each yarn worked up, how it looked as a fabric, and even how it might hold up after washing and wear. Now, a tip within the tip here is if you are going to crochet something, maybe it's a gift, maybe it's something that you're going to sell, maybe it's something you're going to use. Before I make an entire sweater or blanket or whatnot with something, I like to crochet a little swatch and go through the care process for that. So if I made a blanket with, let's say, any one of these swatches right here, or if I wanted to make a blanket with any one of these swatches, I would go through the care instructions. Can it go in the washer? What washing solution? Can it go in the dryer? On what setting? Does it lay flat to dry? Go through all the care instructions with that swatch and then annotate what works best. And that way, you're not testing it out on a finished project. You're testing the test and you're not ruining your finished piece. You're really just deciding what works best for it. So this is really simple, but it's a really powerful way to make sure that the yarn is the right fit before committing to a full project. Another thing that you're determining here, and I've done this so many times, I've bought a yarn online, or I found a yarn in person and I got it because I love the color, or, you know, it's pretty and I'm just excited. But actually working up the yarn sometimes I'm like, ooh, it's really rough on my hands. Or, wow, this yarn is so slippery that my tension, I'm holding the tension of my hook or my yarn so much more because this yarn is so slippery, I can't really get a grip on it. So how the yarn feels can really determines how it feels in your hands and whether or not you even enjoy working with it. So those are the kind of things that a swatch can help you to make too. If you want to learn more about substituting yarn, because maybe a pattern calls for a yarn or you're using a yarn and you're like, I need elements of this, but I really want to do something different. I want a different yarn entirely. I have an easy reference for crocheters to understand yarn substitution with tips to get it right. Okay, now last but not least, this is the thing that most people feel you do with swatch and crochet, and that's swatch for gauge. So here, I hope you guys find a lot of information that's really helpful for you. Definitely click on the link in this video description to find more details on this and to really get a handle on it. Now, whenever you swatch for gauge, or let me back up and say there are a few reasons a swatch is a good tool in crochet, and I've already outlined quite a few of those, and gauge or a size assessment is just one of those. So when we're thinking about gauge, particular in crochet, we're talking about a measurement of the stitches wide and a measurement of the rows tall within a fabric. Now, whenever we're reading a pattern or even on the yarn label, gauge is typically given in a 4" by 4" square. That's just kind of the industry standard. Not every crochet project is going to be size essential, so you don't always have to swatch for gauge. It's really only crucial if size is going to be an essential element of your project. Now, crocheting a swatch for gauge is going to display your stitches and your row measurements, which will determine the finished size of your fabric. So if there is a fabric size that you're trying to meet and you want to make sure that your fabric size matches the fabric size, that's where gauge comes into play. So let's break down an example and see what it means exactly. Let's say you're following a pattern and the gauge listed says 16 double crochet stitches equals 4 inches, 8 double crochet rows equals 4 inches. Another way of explaining the example gauge listed is 4 double crochet stitches equals 1 inch. And we're really just dividing it down. So if 16 equals 4, that means for every 4 double crochet stitches worked, 1 inch of fabric is going to be made. Does that make sense? Another way to look at that 8 double crochet rows equals 4 inches is to divide it down further. So if we do that, 1 row of double crochet stitches is going to measure a 1/2 inch. So for every row of double crochet rows worked, a 1/2 inch of fabric will be made. Make sense? I've attached an image here to show 3 different crochet swatches, and each one of these is made with 10 double crochet stitches and 10 double crochet rows. Now, while the colors differ, the main point I wanted to highlight here is the yarn size variation. These swatches are made from different yarn weights, a 3, a 4, and a 5 respectively. So the smallest is the 3, the middle is the 4, and the largest is the 5. So when we do this with this broad of a scale, it results in a very noticeable difference in both the stitch width and the row height. So what I wanted to clearly demonstrate here is how size of yarn and the crochet hook you use can significantly impact the overall size of your stitches and fabric. And that's gauge. Whether you're a beginner or an experienced crocheter with tons of experience, learning how and why to crochet swatches is a skill that will absolutely benefit literally every crocheter. So scroll back to the top of this article for helpful tutorials to learn or practice all of the basics, or you can give our crochet stitch library a try today if you're looking to try something new. We have over 30 free crochet stitch and video tutorials to try. So if you're just looking to try new stitches and a reason to try out yarns you've never tried and you just want to play and explore, then definitely click on over and view that today. If you guys like this video, if you found some helpful tips in it, maybe give this a like, maybe leave me a comment. Questions, comments, and feedback are always appreciated. And if you really enjoyed this video, subscribe, maybe share with a friend, and definitely come on back if you need help or have any questions in the crochet world. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you learned something. See you next time. Peace, love, crochet.